What did Merkel say? She said, we shouldn't care what our nation's people think. We need to totally open the borders and merge with the Middle East and Africa. And we need a orderly governance to do this. And she's back in the news today saying we need a government to oversee it. And of course, who is that? Oh, it's the European Union and the UN. Oh, I see. They build the refugee camps, they suck off the third world, they organize the giant hordes, they then collapse the borders, they bring in the first wave of 15 million. Tourism goes down 80+%, no-go zones all over Europe, top French police, top Danish police, top German police, top Swedish police all say we are failed societies in the last month. More mass rapes, more mass killings, more machine gun attacks. Now they just admit that whole sections of major cities. I was looking at maps in Germany and Sweden of where they won't deliver mail, where plumbers won't come, and so there's now feces everywhere and broken sewage, and the Islamicists are almost all on welfare, walking around in nightgowns, the men, just lazy, stupid jackasses, arrogant, brought in as the Trojan horse, and then Merkel says, and Macron says, the answer is having the EU Army and Navy ordered. I don't write them down. They're not done by speechwriters. They just come from my gut and from history. But I began to have a little saying that I don't know how all of this is going to end. But if you want to fight, you better believe you've got one. And you see humanity all over the globe awakening to the globalist paradigm and the fact that it is authoritarian cancer. And even the Wall Street Journal, even the Financial Times of London and others today have articles out admitting that the liberal world government, global governance, has been shot to pieces. It's like Humpty Dumpty. But you've got Merkel in a speech she gave this weekend, repeating what she said last week, that the enemy is nation states. We must get rid of nation states, just like Macron said. The greatest form of patriotism is not having a country. These are quotes. Can't make this up, that they need 200 million Africans just in France alone, and that Africa is the heart of France and the birthplace of France. And you say, that doesn't make sense. That's upside down world. It's meant to break your will. They're testing. That's why, what did Merkel say? She said, we shouldn't care what our nation's people think. We need to totally open the borders and merge with the Middle East and Africa. And we need a orderly governance to do this. And she's back in the news today saying we need a government to oversee it. And of course, who is that? Oh, it's the European Union and the UN. Oh, I see. They build the refugee camps, they suck off the third world, they organize the giant hordes, they then collapse the borders, they bring in the first wave of 15 million. Tourism goes down 80+%. No-go zones all over Europe, top French police, top Danish police, top German police, top Swedish police all say we are failed societies in the last month. They said we are in a war. Why are you collapsing everything? No one's coming for tourism. There's murder all over the place, mass rape. The leftist judges are releasing the Muslims when they do it. Hand grenade attack, machine gun attacks every day, mass plowing attacks every day. Until Sadiq Khan's proven right, the Islamic mayor of London, the jihadi mayor, he said, just get used to it 2 years ago. And then he said it again this year, just get used to it. And you know, I've actually gotten used to it, where there's so many articles on Infowars.com and Newswars.com and EuropeWars.com that link to more mass rapes, more mass killings, more machine gun attacks. Now they just admit that whole sections of major cities. I was looking at maps in Germany and Sweden of where they won't deliver mail, where plumbers won't come, and so there's now feces everywhere and broken sewage, and the Islamicists are almost all on welfare, walking around in nightgowns, the men, just lazy, stupid jackasses, arrogant, brought in as the Trojan horse, and then Merkel says, and Macron says, the answer is having the EU Army and Navy orderly bring in more. which was always the plan. Oh, and the second bigger caravan, they're not saying it's 200, then it was 50,000. Remember that? Now they're admitting it's 50,000 are massing in Honduras and Guatemala for the next invasion force. And Beto O'Rourke tweeted out over the weekend that he was so pleased that thousands a day of the illegal aliens are just being released because they don't have jails, they don't have ICE facilities, and the judges are just saying, release them, release them. You can get here, you make it across, you're in gratis. And if they collapse us, it's done. So the president understands the world's awakening to globalism and how big megacorporations, they have their own armored fortresses. From the Vatican, it's a megacorporation. To Google, it's a big megacorporation. To the Democratic Party and you know, the multiple 10-foot walls they've got and 20-foot walls around their houses, like Obama. We've sent cameras to Obama's second White House, a mile from the real White House. It's got 2 walls around it. Just like Zuckerberg's got big walls. Everybody else has got big walls. But you can't have walls. And so Trump's desperately trying to have a big wall. And then they start going, oh, now you want big metal slats. Well, that's a wall. And the military says it's the best design. Oh, you lied to us. So he's the bad one because he can't get him to act. And he stood up to him and shut down the government and is asking for enough to repair what's there and fill up all the other critical sectors. And because he's trying, he's the bad guy. Meanwhile, Pocahontas has announced she's running for president. It's an amazing time to be alive. And, of course, the censorship is heating up. So they want to plunge economies of nationalist countries. That's what the globalists are doing, to teach Italy a lesson and the U.S. a lesson and the U.K. a lesson. They're on the news saying, we're going to shut your stock markets down and plunge your pensions if you don't sign on to the EU and if you don't sign on to open borders and if you don't sign on to globalism. And the average person doesn't take that as the ultimatum and as the terrorism, the financial terrorism it is. It's just kind of like, oh, yeah, see, the economy's plunging. Better get in line, Trump. And top neocons have joined all these Democrats on TV saying, yeah, the economy's going down. Now we can impeach Trump. Cheerleading our own collapse. And this is a good thing. These are the good guys. No, these are not the good guys. They're open. They're coming after our children. There isn't one taboo they don't want to break because they want our will broken. This is called, when you occupy a nation, the only way to make them give up to a foreign occupier is called one word: demoralization. There's one way unless you kill everybody, and that is to demoralize them. And you read the WikiLeaks and you read the Financial Times of London, this stuff's public. And what do they say? The answer is culture war. Racial and division between the sexes, a modern great game of divide and conquer. And they sit there in people's faces saying they're doing it like we're not even human. They're up there above us going, oh, just escalate race war. Every major movie's about whites being mean to blacks or women being oppressed. And it's being done by the ruling, horrible, evil globalists that are backing radical Islam, literally mass murdering and enslaving women all over the planet. And not a damn word out of the filthy feminists, because they're not feminist. They're whores of the pimp state. And they deliver their sons to be chemically castrated and to be put on Ritalin and Prozac because the government said so. And they feminize their sons as an act of attacking any form of resistance. They are agents of evil. They are collaborators. Oh, and where was Franklin Graham and where was the Christian Coalition and all these groups when I got taken off the internet? Not a word. Oh, and then all the other libertarians and conservatives. And now Michael Savage is having his show taken away. And it's being, but he can't talk about it because the contract I can. And it's being given to Shapiro. I warned everyone. And now Franklin Graham, AP reports, well, one of the 15,000 fact checkers that Facebook employs, trained by the Southern Poverty Law Center and Media Matters, that's on record, actually says it, was mistaken for a post from 2016 where Franklin Graham said that there was, 2 genders and some other things. And they said, this is dehumanization. But when they went, wait, you just went after a guy with at least 50 million members, they might actually get Congress to do something. Wait, you can stay. See how that works? But what's the real dehumanization? It's coming in and teaching a 5-year-old girl or boy that they're another sex and totally molesting their mind and screwing them up because you're running a larger global government project of depopulation and destruction of the family, which is on record. That's the dehumanization. That's what the big tech of 2018, what a year. And I gotta say, really sitting back and thinking, it's been a good year. It's been a rough year. It's been hard fought. And a lot of good things happened and a lot of bad things happened. But in the final summation, if you read establishment publications like the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times of London and Atlantic Monthly, where the globalists communicate with each other, they are licking grievous wounds and openly talking about how they're losing their world government and how nationalism and Christianity and populism is exploding. And they talk about how they're going to counter it, and that's by creating global race war. If you study how the British would control India with only a few thousand troops for over 200 years, they called it the Great Game. And they wrote about it in British newspapers until the 1900s, and Indians started moving to England some and started sending newspapers back where the British government was talking about how they would play different tribes off against each other and how they sent sociologists in to learn how to manipulate them. They did in Afghanistan, Pakistan, you name it. But here's a Wall Street Journal article out today. 2018 biggest loser was the liberal international order. When they mean liberal, they mean big mega banks above the law that pay no taxes, spying on you with big tech and creating cultural division and destroying the first world in a reverse colonial operation, which also hurts the third world as well. So humanity started to get its footing in 2016. And you saw a lot of prosperity come back because Trump could just wrest the wheel of the economy away from the private Federal Reserve a little bit. He got a little bit of a course correction, but it was like a man coming up from deep water and finally getting a breath. But they've shoved our face right back in the water as fast as they can and are now blaming Trump. So as we accelerate into 2019, all I can say is start your engines. Strap yourselves in and get ready, because it's going to be the year of the globalist counteroffensive. 84 new investigations that these different committees are going to fire up in T-minus 3 days. 3 days, ladies and gentlemen, until all of this kicks in. And so brace yourselves. But the good news is humanity's coming out of the trance and is realizing we're in a fight. And we've got a good shot at this if we get on our knees and pray to God and then take action. Big broadcast today, a lot of big guests. You don't want to miss it. Stay with us.